they can't make it and I better send them the recording. I've just activated the recording. So I want to introduce you to Mapiq. So Mapiq are the smart office experts. They've been in the industry for over 6 years, and their first claim to fame, or their first success story, was the Edge building in Amsterdam. And for anyone who's in workspace, everyone always knows the Edge in Amsterdam. And 6 years later, the Edge in Amsterdam is still regarded as one of the top smart buildings in the world. And Mapiq is the technology that enabled that flexible way of working for the employees at the Edge. And since then, they've come a long way. If you just look at the bottom of my slide, I squished in some of the clients that they deal with all over the world. And they include Deloitte across the globe. And we have Deloitte in South Africa, in Johannesburg, using the technology as well. We've got PwC, Danone, Heineken, Unilever, Microsoft. So they've got quite an extensive client base. And what's important for me from that perspective is it's a tried and trusted solution, which is the reason why Catalyst partnered with Mapiq in the first place. Now, today is not the day where we're going to tell you about the full Mapiq workspace solution. However, I thought I'd show you a few screens just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So the full Mapiq solution is designed to enable flexible working, that whole new way of working where no one's got a desk. And I'm on the go all the time, and I can say, listen, I'm looking for a desk to work. I can look on my phone, see what's available on the 4th floor. There's a desk that's open. My colleagues happen to sit in the area, and I can literally walk to that desk, check in where I'm sitting so my colleagues know where I am. I can find a meeting room quickly. So I can on my phone say, you and I want to meet. Where's a meeting room available? It integrates with Outlook. It shows you what meeting rooms are available. It has sensors. We have sensors in the ceiling that tell you if someone's actually arrived, if someone's in the meeting room. But I get very excited. So I'm not going to get into the full Mapiq solution today, but it's a fully integrated smart workspace management solution, including full analytics. So from an analytics platform, we now integrate with Outlook. We know when people book a meeting off the cuff. And then analytics will not only tell you people who have booked who haven't showed, it will actually tell you what's your meeting room performance. How often are your meeting rooms used? On average, by how many people? How often are desks booked? How often are desks used? So it really provides this fully integrated solution. And kind of the story where Mapiq Office Shifts evolved is Mapiq had all these customers who were using the Mapiq solution. And then a few months ago, the world hit lockdown and people weren't going to the office anymore. And as companies were starting to let people back, they needed a solution to actually say, listen, how do we manage some of our staff returning back to the office? So we know who's coming, when they're allowed to come, and we don't have to manage everything through emails or leave it up to the line managers who don't do such a good job of it. And that's really where Mapiq Office Shifts evolved, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, just our agenda for today. That was pretty much the introduction, although I would like to introduce you to Yannick, who's on the call over there. Got a nice photo of him in the background. And Yannick is the Smart Office Advisor at Mapiq. He's actually the head of the Smart Office Advisory team. And the reason I asked Yannick to join us on the call, not just from an experience on the product perspective, but they've got so much experience over the last few months in dealing with customers who've gone through the same process where a lot of South African companies are going through now. So Yannick will start by taking us through some of the current market trends. And I always tell clients, you know, Europe is a few months ahead of us when it comes to from a COVID perspective. So they had lockdown when we didn't, and they started going back to the office while we were still in lockdown. So what's great with Yannick and his team is they've gone through this movie already, and he'll tell us exactly some of the trends they're seeing, what companies have done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and he'll just share some of that knowledge with us. Then we'll jump into the software. We'll show you exactly what the software looks like. We'll take you through some of the analytics that the solution provides. And we'll actually just talk to you about a case study. One of the customers who's implemented Mapiq Office Shifts, just what's their experience, what works, what doesn't work, and we'll take you through that. And then hopefully by then you all love the software, and the next question on your minds will be, how do we get started? and we'll take you through that. And then hopefully we have some time for questions at the end. Now, if you're not familiar with Zoom Webinar, on your bar, which is either at the top or the bottom or somewhere on your screen, there's a little Q&A option. And if you click on it, you should be able to post questions. So if you do post questions, we might not take questions during the session, but we'll get to them at the end. And if we do run out of time, which I hope we don't, we'll just answer all the questions and just pop you a mail at the end with all the feedback. Cool. Is everyone ready? So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to hand over to Yannick, who will take us through some of the market trends that they've seen all over the world. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Indeed, let me start sharing my screen to run you through it. All right. Perfect. I think, as Tasha already mentioned, we're a Dutch-based company. So our two founders, the CTO and CEO, still heavily involved in the company. They founded Mapiq back in 2014, and indeed, the Edge was actually our first project. So you can imagine that that was for us also a pretty good jump start for our smart building career, as you may call it. Because of course it's still, yeah, indeed, as Tertia already mentioned, one of the smartest and sustainable offices, especially on the globe. And after that, indeed, we went overseas quite fast and landed in South Africa with Deloitte building from Johannesburg, a wonderful city. But of course, together with Catalyst, are expanding our reach there as well. So indeed, I want to start with some market trends, and most of this is based on either the data that we've seen from the customers using Office Shifts, but also just about the conversation that we have with our customers. Of course, indeed, our biggest customer base is still in Europe. So as already mentioned, we also see that Europe is a bit ahead. And actually, indeed, we just hit the second lockdown, which is already reducing in COVID cases as well. So companies are now already deciding if they want to go back to the office in January or March again. So just to give you a sort of big overview of what's happening right now. So you see, of course, with this changing workplace, that before COVID, companies are already moving down their real estate. They were actually already working from home more than before. The flexible use of office space started increasing with activity-based working, agile working. I think you're definitely familiar with the terms. But then the office purpose was definitely the full suite of work. So you could either sit behind your desk for 8 hours, or you could also have meetings, anything you'd like to do there. But the office was the place to go work. Then, of course, during COVID, that has changed. So we are now still the same opinion. So real estate is going down at the same pace, not faster, not slower. Of course, working from home increased rapidly. And by this, the flexible use of office space really decreased, because right now sharing a desk with someone at the same day, of course, all of a sudden has a whole different story because of hygiene, for example. And then the office purpose is definitely only the essential work. So typically those are people in call centers. It's people who need to have access to specific facilities. So for example, we have a customer, PVH, which is the mother company of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. And they, of course, need to work with fabrics. So that's pretty difficult to take home. So only the essentials are done at the office. And then, as of course, we are also starting conversations with our customers, what the future is going to look like, is that most companies currently have the opinion that they're going to lower their real estate. That doesn't mean that everyone has the luxury to say goodbye to buildings all of a sudden, or floors maybe if you're renting it. But it does mean that they're going to lower the amount of desks. So the balance between desks and meeting areas, for example, is going to be much more focused on meetings instead of on desks. Working from home, I think we all agree that that's definitely there to stay. It has a positive impact on a lot of different things, of course, being optimization, one of them, but sustainability, commuting back and forth to work is lowered. So definitely a very positive impact. Of course, then the flexible use of office space definitely increased back again. So once we finally can share stuff, the same stuff with our peers, then it makes it a lot easier. But then the office purpose is changing towards a more collaborating, inspiring, experiencing, and of course also still working. So if you have a meeting, you need to be able to withdraw to a focus desk, maybe to do some work, but definitely much more a place where you collaborate with your peers. And by this, of course, the necessity for workplace technology really increases, because if you're going to either lower your desks or you're going to change your workplace concept, or maybe indeed even going to say goodbye to buildings, you can't just open the gates. So this flexible use of office space, it needs to be in a sort of controlled and managed environment. Still making sure that people have the autonomy to choose, but then of course setting the guidelines from the company. Then some of the things that we saw in our data. So indeed, I think a good sentence, it definitely all starts with data. So understanding how your employees are coming back to the office, but also how they're using their space is pretty important, and will become more important as time goes on. So some things that we saw is that indeed employee needs remain the same. The office just used differently. So people still need to do the same job. We quite often collaborate with a company called Leaseman. It's definitely a name I would Google one time. They do a benchmark survey to workplaces, and what they also saw is that the activities didn't change. Just the place or the time that people do these activities, those have changed. So we, for example, saw that 66% of workers worked from home more often in the Netherlands. Of course, indeed, like I already mentioned, it needs to be possible to work from home in this way. But we already see a very big increase in comparison to before COVID, based on the data from the general smart office platform that we have implemented at all these customers. Then you also see that the employee indeed use it too often to meet with colleagues. So making sure that you are able to see when and where your colleagues are at the office becomes more important. This comes from our own data. So before COVID, you saw that the ratio between meeting and individual work was about 0.9%. So the balance between them. And we now already saw that it has increased to 1.3. So that means that indeed 0.4 percent point sort of was used more often for meeting. Our customers are actually using these data already to start changing their workplace concept, focused towards the future. So even though, of course, that's still different, because this is from the period, let's say, between June 1st and September 1st. That was sort of the time frame that, at least in the Netherlands, where our biggest customer base still is, they were able to go back to the office again. So it's only 3 months, and it's of course still with a COVID situation, but you now already saw an increase. So our expectancy is that it will start increasing more towards meetings. So we're now actually running research already to see if the balance between both individual meeting areas, but then with video collaboration tools or without video collaboration tools, how these are changing too. So of course, yeah, the more customers we have, the more data that we can analyze. And then, yeah, of course, data helps to make the best business decisions. So if you're going to change your workplace concept towards more flexible working, and it's not just a simple one-on-one ratio your space planning team has to deal with, then all of a sudden you need to manage it, and you need to make sure that you constantly adapt to the changing needs of your employees. So we already see in this, Gartner did a good research to it, that data will definitely become a lot more important also at the workplace. All right, then of course we want to share yeah, what it actually looks like, how it works, what you can do with it. Maybe start with a sort of quick introduction about how we got here. So indeed, as Tertia already mentioned, we had a smart office platform integrated with the existing IT infrastructure of our customers, and really making sure that we could improve flexible working, both from an employee perspective, so they could find facilities near them, but also from a management perspective to help them gather occupancy analytics about their building. But of course, when COVID came, then all of a sudden people want to, or companies want to have a way to manage their capacity. But before COVID, we were mainly talking about buildings. So new buildings, such as the one in Waterfall City from Deloitte, maybe a building where they had a big problem with no-shows in meeting rooms, but we were always talking about a project, a campus, maybe a country. That was the biggest scale we implemented one time for PwC in the Netherlands. But of course, with COVID, all of a sudden it was just wasn't a problem for one building or one campus, but it was a problem for an entire portfolio, regional, maybe even global. So we needed to have something that could scale very fast, so it could scale with the regulations from the government in a specific country, but also it needed to be very easy to implement. So we didn't want it to tap in any hardware. We didn't want any sensors or integrations needed for the solution. It just had to be a very easy to implement software solution that could be up and running within a week. Because you don't have to use hardware, also made it a whole lot cheaper. And it needed to be something that could be managed by the customer. Of course, as part of the onboarding process, we still help configure everything, but in the end, the customer can manage it themselves to really make them autonomous. And that really, hit the market very positive. So I think we're now running for close to 6 months. Actually, I think yesterday we had the 6 months, time frame. And we are now already close to 800,000 bookings made. So in a very short amount of time, we managed to help a lot of people globally. It consists of 2 parts. So first of all, you have your manager tool. I will demo this, and then you have the employee app, which will be demoed by Tertia. So the Office Shifts Manager is really there to configure everything. So configure capacities, configure so-called access profiles. Of course, I will explain what those mean. But also, just creating guidelines for the employees, so they know what they can expect from coming back to the office, and on the other hand, also to make sure that you're always in control. And then by this, of course, you're also gathering analytics about the booking behavior of your employees without being able to draw it, of course, back to an individual person due to privacy regulations, but on an overview, seeing how your people come back to the office and how they book their shifts. And then for the employee app, people are able to book their day at the office. They're able to see when their colleagues are there to make it easier to meet up with someone, and of course, indeed, delete shifts if they decide not to come. So I will start with the Office Shifts Manager tool, and then, as mentioned, Tertia will take over to go to the end user application. All right, let me quickly take a sip of my water. All right, perfect. So the Office Shifts Manager tool, as I mentioned already, really a sort of admin dashboard for you to configure everything. Of course, we help with configuring this the first time together with Catalyst. We set up this environment for our customers. The way that we always start is we always start with configuring our buildings. I've already pre-configured some buildings, so at least you have an understanding of what it looks like. But it's very easy to just add a new building if you'd like to. The way that Mapiq works, and this is really to make it a very flexible solution, is that first of all, you start with calling a building. As you see here, I created a building in Johannesburg. Then I add floor levels to this building. And then to these floor levels, I add so-called areas. The size of the area, it's completely up to the customer. So if the customer wants to have a very big area, as you could see here, 50 or 70 seats, because you already have a sort of department level layout, and people know where these departments are at, then that's the best way to go. If you would like to really narrow down, maybe even to a desk island, or maybe you would like to narrow down to your flexible workplace concept, so divided by focus area, flexible areas, phone booth, maybe even, then of course you can always do that. So it's in the end the best practice that we saw, and the best way to configure this is really that it needs to be a digital duplicate of your physical workplace concept, because then it doesn't need any explanation for your employees. It only needs you to type the name. So the name, of course, you can change yourself, and you can simply add a number. This also means that if you're gradually going to let more people come back to the office, it's very easy to just simply add 10 to the number, and then you would have a capacity increase of 10 seats. So it's very easy for you to start changing it if you'd like to. So you hit save, and immediately the end users will see this in their end user application too. Then the second thing that you're going to configure is the so-called access profiles. The access profiles consists of 2 parts. First of all, you have the quota profiles, are there to create guidelines for employees on how they can come to the office. And then you have the location profiles to determine where someone can book their office. I understood from Tertia that, of course, there's also some financial institutions today at the webinar. I can imagine that you might have some areas that are restricted because there's confidential information. So, of course, you can determine which building someone can book. so that people from Cape Town can only book in Cape Town and people from Johannesburg can only book in Johannesburg. But you can also determine in a building where you allow someone to book their shift. Let's start with explaining you what it looks like to configure an access profile. So here you can, of course, name the profile any way you'd like to. You can set a weekly quota. So the weekly quota is really for you a way to balance the capacity that you have and the amount of shifts that can be booked. So it's always equal. So you won't have people feeling that there's not enough space for them. So if you introduce a sort of scarcity, of course, you will get to the situation where people want to be sure to have their shifts booked. So they will wait until 12 o'clock midnight to book their shift. So you want to make it as fair and unbiased as possible. Then you can determine how many days or weeks someone can book in advance. Most often we advise our customers that for the big part of the biggest part of the company, you just let them be able to book a week in advance, and that's for people who need to have priority because they need to have access to specific facilities. Maybe people who aren't able to work in specific parts, then you can give them access in a different way. And sometimes you also just have like the more flexible workers. You only like to allow them to book a day ahead or 3 days ahead. It's completely up to you. And then you can also allow which days of the week someone can book their shift. Then, of course, to make sure that you are not going to have to implement or import all these users individually. So with the size of your employee base, I can imagine that you don't want to do this all manually. So we've created a feature called automatic assignment. The way it works is we tap into your Active Directory. So we integrate with your single sign-on. If requested, of course, we can also work without. Then you simply click add a rule. And then you can choose a couple different options to take these automatic assignment rule from. So you can either determine it on home office, country, business unit, department, or the job title. For the quota profiles, most of our customers use either business unit or department. And then, for example, if you type business unit, and I would like to add finance, then now every single time someone from the finance department logs in for the first time, could either be the first time at the start of office shifts, or if in 3 months you hire someone new who will be part of the finance department, it doesn't matter. Automatically, they'll be given the right quota profile to make sure that this is an automated process and you don't have to do this all manually. This also means, of course, that it's single sign-on, so people just sign in with their company credentials. And if someone leaves the company, automatically he doesn't have access to office shifts as well, just to make sure that it's part of your daily process. If you don't want to have single sign-on because of any reason, we sometimes have customers who prefer just to have a self-sign-up way of doing so. Of course, you can always just simply select the CSV file, upload it, and then that's the way to go. So it's completely up to you. Most of the customers we work with use single sign-on. All right, so that was the quota profiles. Then if you look at the location profiles, it works pretty similar. So you can click add, and then you can simply just click or hit another location. So if you want to, for example, find a different location for Johannesburg, then you can select the floor area even. So I can select floor 0, and I only want them to be able to book at the HR department. So now every time someone with the quota or the location profile Johannesburg is only able to book at the HR floor. Again, completely dependent on how you would like to set it up. Then, of course, you will start gathering analytics about employees as well. So here at the Analytics tab, you have all kinds of information. This comes from a Power BI data lake. So if this view is not enough, you can always go to the actual analytic dashboard, and you can create your own reports and graphs. So we can even make it possible to have this information accessible via an open API if you want to, for example, integrate it into another solution. But we also offer some standard dashboards based on the experience that we have. So here you can see the average booked shifts, peak shifts, of course, to see if you're still doing okay there. History, including a trend line, where you can see the amount of booked shifts versus the capacity. So every information that you need, you can get it from here. At the analytics dashboard, you can also see or analyze booking behavior. So how our specific zones or areas or maybe access profiles are doing compared to each other. Then if you want to change anything manually, of course, we always need to give the option if someone, I don't know, asks for an exception. So let's say, for example, this is one of my colleagues, Andres. He currently has a priority profile, but actually I would like to add him to the sales profile because that's the team he's at. And I want to make it possible only to book in Johannesburg. Then I hit save changes, and then you can override the automatic assignment rule that you have added. So in the end, people, of course, can always ask for exceptions. Maybe their private situation doesn't allow them to work from home productively, and you would like to get them to the office if they want to. Then, of course, you can always change this if needed. Then people start booking their day at the office. Right now, of course, this is a demo model, so it's pretty empty. But with our customers, there's long lists of people. For privacy regulations, of course, people give their consent for storing their name, their email, company address, but also 30 days of reservation data. So that means that, of course, you can export or you can integrate this via an open API to your access control system. So that someone, if they book their shift, they can come to the office. But also what's very important that, let's say there's someone that got infected, that you can look back 30 days into the past, which people were at the office at which day, but also which area. To make sure that you can alarm them that they might have been close to someone that got infected by COVID. You simply hit export, and then it exports as an Excel file. Right, then all this information comes together in the home screen. So here, when people start booking their shift, you can see how many shifts are being booked, and you can also forecast for the upcoming weeks how many shifts you can expect. And then to end with, before I give back the word to Tertia, is here at the settings page, we're going to make it possible, or we make it possible to set a welcome message that the end users will see once they open the app for the first time. Type an email address from a contact person, or maybe if there's a link that you would like people to go to. Some of our customers, indeed, like you see here, just have a link with their policy around COVID. Some other customers, they have a link to a health form that people need to fill in before they go into the office. The company website link, you can type any link you would like to. And then, your employees are, after you've configured all this, your employees are able to book their shift at the office. Perfect. Tertia, I will give the word back to you, so you can take over again.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Yes, I'm going to share my screen. Can I just confirm, Yannick, do you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Cool. So obviously, as Yannick took us through it, that is the Office Shifts Manager portal. And in my discussions with a lot of clients at the moment, a lot of companies are in this phased approach. So they're saying, well, we should either make a decision we're not allowing anyone back yet, but sometimes we have to. People want to start having meetings, and we only want to have a small space available. I even know of some companies who've created 2 floors with social distancing desks, and if someone wants to come to the office, you guys can come work here. And hopefully what you can see with the manager portal, it's all in your control. You decide what the phased approach is. So if you want to start Mapiq Office Shifts in one building with 1 floor and only allowing certain people to come to the office, you can set that up. And it's completely in your control. So one of the things that they found in Europe a while back, when they went back into lockdown, they obviously had they had employees who had booked their shifts in advance for the week. And all they did is they just immediately stopped any bookings. And the Mapiq guys said they could see people logged on the night before to actually block any bookings that come forward and simply mail everyone who has booked to say, guys, we won't be allowing people in the office anymore. You can't come. So it's a really good way to proactively manage who comes to the office. Now, I've got a quick poll that I want to run. If you guys wouldn't mind just answering it for me. So you'll see a few questions, and really the questions are, first question is, how many of your employees are back at the office yet? So we just want to know that. And the next question is, what's your planning at the moment to come to the office? Okay, so we're seeing that a lot of people are back and some not. Cool, so what's our result? So really a mixed bag. Some people are still all working from home, only allowing some people back, allowing more people back. And let me just see, most people are allowing people back, and we're either looking at either January, March, getting back. Cool. So everyone's doing everything, which is why you need Mapiq Shifts to be able to run it. Cool, I'm going to end the poll unless there's someone who still wants to get their vote in. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Cool, so really a mix. And one thing that is actually nice to see is the answer where people are not sure when we'll allow staff to be back, that no one answered a yes, which is quite good. So a few months ago, I'm going to share the results so you can see it. I don't know if anyone can see it. Cool, so you can just see the results there. Very much mixed, everyone's doing everything. And it's really good for me to see from a South African perspective, a lot of people are allowing people to come back to the office. And with a lot of my clients that I'm saying they're allowing people back, they say it's become quite an admin nightmare. As one client said, either people arrive, like no one arrives at the office, or everyone arrives at the office. And people who aren't allowed to come just arrive, and then we have to deal with security, not wanting to let them in. So it's quite an interesting time. So where Yannick showed you the kind of manager portal, let me show you what the employees will get. Now remember, you control it. So you set up which buildings, which floors, etc. you're allowing back. And from a employee perspective, they have to book. So that's one of the things. We know humans, allowing people to come to the office doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come. And you need to be able to do both. You need to say, okay, cool, we're allowing you to come back to the office, but you have to tell us which days you're coming. And that's what we do with the employee portal. So let me jump back into my screen. And what I've done is I'm showing you the employee portion. Now we've simulated it on a phone because I tried showing that this disaster, that didn't work. So we're showing you simulating what it would look like on a phone. However, if I quickly jump back, just to show you, I'm going to do this. What we do at the office is we just do the bookings from our desktop. So the Mapiq solution works on both, and you can just see, here's my office shifts, and that's where I can, from my desktop, just book when I'm going to come to the office or not. So you do have both. Okay, let me go into full screen. So the first time, so you've done all your planning, and the first time you're telling employees they're allowed to come to the office, when and where, they'll get an email. So they'll get an email from the company to say, please click here to register. And as Yannick said, we have two options. We can either integrate with your single sign-on and your Active Directory, which especially if you've got multiple buildings, thousands of employees, it's a very effective way to do it because you won't have to add or manage or administrate anyone who's left the company, any new employees. The system will just run. However, if you don't want to integrate into Active Directory, it's a simple import export. They've made it really easy to set it up. So the first time employees see it, they'll get this link, they'll log in, and you'll see they get a welcome message. Now you saw on Yannick's screen, you decide what your welcome message is going to be. And what the solution pulls through is based on the rights you've allocated to Lisa. It will tell you how often she's allowed to come to the office. So Lisa, you can come 2 shifts a week. You can plan 10 working days in advance, and you can come on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Or Tertia, you can come Tuesdays and Thursdays, etc., etc. And then what we've done, which we find works quite well with customers, to say, if you've got any queries, please contact this person. And that was that email address that Yannick showed earlier. Please contact that person. So if people do, you might not allow them to come back to the office, but they do need to come to the office in an emergency, you absolutely can give them the rights to be able to do that in the solution. So the first time I'll get a welcome message, and as I click on it, it will show me which days, based on my allocation, I can come to the office. So I can come those different days, and I can select just to book. However, so when Mapiq Office Shifts just came out, this is what it looked like. But as we started implementing it in Europe, they realized, but people wanted to not just come to the office on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I wanted to come to the office the same day Leandre is going to be at the office, or the same day Lee's going to be at the office, because when I come to the office, I actually want to spend time with the people that I work with. I want to collaborate with those people. So what Office Shifts, what Mapiq included is, if you click on the left-hand side at the top there, the hamburger, some people refer to it, firstly, it gives me a notification and says a colleague wants to make a connection with you. So how we've designed the solution is you can follow, just like you do on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, you can say, I want to follow these people when they come to the office. And it works vice versa. So my colleagues can say, I want to come to the office when Tertia's going to be there. But you can't do random stalking. Yes, we know that happens. You can't do random stalking. So you have to request it and someone has to accept it. So you can see I've received a free request from Michael Collins, Ryan Foster, and Rebecca. And I can just either accept or ignore. Now, one of my clients said the other day, Tertia, how do we stop people who only want to come to the office when the MD is going to be there to show that they're actually coming to the office? And I said, well, you can just ignore all the requests he gets, so no one can see when he's coming to the office. He can just decide who he wants to follow. So I can accept, and at the same time, I can add colleagues. So I can say, who are the people that I want to see when they're coming to the office? Now, what's happened, if I go to that same screen where I can book, look what it's showing me now. It's showing me that Robert is coming on Wednesday. On Thursday, I'm going to have Robert and Rebecca and Michael. So Thursday is going to be a busy day. Do I really want to come to the office? Or yes, because everyone's going to be there on Thursday, I want to come to the office as well. So it's much easier for people to actually collaborate. And that's what you as companies want. As companies, we want our employees to collaborate again. I had such a great story with the other day with a friend of mine who works for one of the banks. And he said, so, you know, we've been teamsing like mad for the last few months. He says, we are team is experts. He said, and we had our first meeting at the office face-to-face the other day, just our small division. And I saw people that I've seen on Teams for the last few months face-to-face. And he said, you know, it's quite funny. We've been struggling with this problem for months. And he said, we sat face-to-face and we said, let's talk about this issue. And we managed to resolve it in 10 minutes. And that's really the power of starting to get people back to the office, but to actually be with the people who can collaborate with them. So really, really cool. So I can say, I want to come on Wednesday, or do I only want to view, I don't want to see everyone. I just maybe want to see when Rebecca is coming to the office. So I can filter, I can type an R and it brings up all the R's, Rebecca, Robert, and Ryan. Cool. When are they going to be at the office? Okay, those days. Great. I'm going to book for Thursday, the 4th of June. And the first time I do it, first time I register on Office Shifts, it will ask me, what's my default location? So people don't have to every time say which floor they want to work. So I can select a default based on your setup. Remember, if you didn't set up, I can go to that floor. It won't give them to the employees as an option. So it says, oh, my default floor that I set up is floor 6 in finance. But I can see where Ryan and Robert and Michael have already booked. I just want to move this out of the way, have already booked to come to the office. So I can say, well, when I come to the office, I actually want to book on floor 2, or I want to book on floor 3 because I want to sit close to them. Now, what's important from that perspective is I can only do that based on capacity. So if you look at this, it will show me, okay, cool, floor 6 finance area. You can see how full the other floors are already. So I can't book. So let's say I want to go sit on floor 2 with Michael and Ryan. However, floors already reached their maximum capacity. I can't book to come and sit at that floor. So it really is quite cool to manage that as well. And what we found with customers, it's much better to manage this proactively. So no, you cannot sit at your old desk in finance because we've reached capacity, than trying to manage that when people are in the office. Because you know, people are people, they do what they want. So it's very good to manage it proactively. So I've booked, you can see I've booked for Thursday, done. And I can quickly see who's going to be for Thursday. I've booked for Thursday, who's going to be at the office. And if I want to delete it, I simply go into my app and say, I'm not coming tomorrow anymore. And I delete the shift. Very, very easy to do. and it works both ways. And what Yannick briefly mentioned earlier is you'd be able to, on a daily basis, see who's booked to come to the office. It can integrate to your access control system, and you can do that either by creating an export file, or we have an API that you can set up and integrate into your access control system. So if anyone books or anyone cancels, it goes straight through to the access control system and it manages it through that. Cool. And now I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint. So that's the employee part of it. And one of the things we'll really see for the Mapiq solution specifically, and with Office Shifts, it's really focused and it's designed around the employees. So you saw the solution is easy to set up, it's easy to use, it's easy for employees to book, connect with staff. I think that was the easiest function for people to start using because everyone is used to social media, but it's really easy to set up and really easy to use. And one of the challenges often when we speak to companies is they say, people don't adopt apps. We've written an app, no one uses it. We're not seeing that with the Mapiq Office Shift solution. In fact, two of the customers who recently added, it was both, I think, Deloitte at one of the offices in Amsterdam and PVH, which is a very big global company, said that within the first week, they had 10,000 shifts booked. So one, I think people really want to come back to the office, but we find the app is really adopted by employees as well as companies. So a quick case study, Yannick, if you can pop up, we thought we'd just share some experience of Danone, which is one of the Mapiq customers that uses the solution.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Danone indeed, maybe the story that it started with, it was a company, or was a customer of ours with a smart office platform. So I think somewhere beginning of this year, we implemented or finalized the implementation of the full Mapiq suite with integrated with Outlook, lockers, the building management system. I think we're even going to do parking with them. So just a complete suite. And then, yeah, same story as I told, people were coming back to the office, and other locations who didn't have this smart building, they wanted to have the same solution. So we've implemented it in Belgium, the Netherlands, and France quite fast. But now also started projects in South America. We just started a project in Singapore and Indonesia. So of course, yeah, because it's just a software solution, it was super easy to deploy. So quite fast went to global. What is easy, of course, that if you start with one building, then when you manage the SSO integration, afterwards you can add buildings at any pace you'd like to. So it's very easy to scale once you've did the first implementation. So also the InfoSec compliance, which of course I assume that you probably all have to go through. It was done already and very easy to do. And with them, they saved a lot of time with managing this process manually. So before Office Shifts, they did it, I think several locations did it with Excel spreadsheets, or indeed making the line manager responsible, that they had to decide which people could come to the office at which day. And of course, I'm not sure how your line managers would respond to that, but their line managers responded that it took them, I think, almost a quarter of their daily hours to manage this process, because everyone was just kept asking questions. Can I come? Can I come? Can I come? And then they needed to manage it themselves in an Excel sheet as well. And yeah, as you mentioned, the benefits for the employees were, what we mainly saw is that, of course, an application like this, no matter which application you choose, any reservation tool, it really stands with the fact if everyone uses it or if only half your employees use it. And to make sure that everyone can use it, or everyone uses it, you need to make it as easy and simple as possible to use. So maybe end user application, sometimes actually we got the response like, okay, but this is it, because it looks so simple, but it's really complicated under the hood. But we try to make it as simple as possible to really make sure that the adoption rates become super high. Yeah, the connecting with colleagues, of course, but I think that's already mentioned by Kjertje. For them, it was very important that even though they, of course, made the decision to give different access profiles to different employees, they managed to narrow down, I think, to only 3 or 4. So they tried to make it easy, manageable. But they also understood that it needed to be at least as fair and unbiased as possible. So you didn't want to have the situation where someone looks at someone else and why can he come to the office for 3 days a week? And why can I only come to the office for once a week? Even though that might happen, you want to make it fair and enjoyable for them. And we experienced that on this scale, if you create very simple guidelines and people know what to expect, then they are completely fine with it. This autonomy to choose within the guidelines set by the company was for them very positive impact. Not even, I think, one that we may have realized before. So this is a nice building. This is our flagship building in Amsterdam, but we're also implemented in buildings, I think, existing definitely a lot longer than I am existing on this globe. But so yeah, the type of building, of course, doesn't really matter.
Cool. And I think one of the nice things that Yannick mentioned from a Danone perspective, it's so easy for them to scale now because the setup, we already integrate with their single sign-on. So all they do when they want to add another building or another country is they go into the management profile, they go add a building, set up capacity, link it to the new branch or new office, and everyone gets the email. And they do it themselves. Mapiq hardly get involved. They just license them to add another building, and Danone does all the setup by themselves. So as Yannick said, sometimes people go, is this it? Yes, it is it. It's really designed to be simple and easy to use. And two of the features that get added, just want to check our time, two of the features that are being added in the next few months is we had the request, can someone book on behalf of other people? And that could either be for security or cleaners. People don't have access. So that's a new feature that is coming in the next few months.
Consultants?
Yes, for consultants as well. So we do have that. Yannick, I've got two questions from customers. The first one is someone asking is, can you unfriend? Can you unconnect with someone if you have connected? This is very important.
Yeah, you're not the first one to ask that. And yes, of course, you can always manage your connections. And if you ignore someone, that person doesn't see that you're ignoring them. So that's, I think, good to know.
So yes, it's designed with all the very important rules in the system. And the other question, sorry, I just want to move this out of the way, is what are the stats on human interaction and kind of the support needed on the app and the solution once you've implemented?
No, that's a fair question. The human interaction, as in, we have a couple of human interactions that we measure. So of course we measure the whole adoption, but the actual tickets, the only tickets that we receive right now is that the admin, they can have different roles. So in the admin dashboard, you can have a building configurator, which can do everything. And then you can also have a shift administrator, which cannot change the capacity or the access profiles, but they can just see which people booked. Actually, those are the main requests and almost the only requests that we get with our tickets. The other part of the human interaction that we measure is we also measure how many connections someone has, or on average, but also how many times someone books a shift with a connection. So you can actually measure something, and that's something that our analytics team is working on to see if we can also make this a product towards our customers, but that you can actually see if your employees are actually collaborating with each other. Cool. But on the other stuff, it's so self-explaining that we hardly get any questions from any end user.
Okay, cool. So, kind of what's next is how do you get started? So, what's the next step? First step is really just talk to us. My email details I'll give to you right now. We'll pop all of you an email. Everyone who attended will send you an email with a copy of the slides if you want it. Copy of the slides with our contact details. And you're welcome just to reach out to us and say, listen, give us a quote on pricing. Pricing is based per building and discounted for multiple buildings. So even from a pricing perspective, Mapiq made it really, really easy to say how many buildings, and we can just set you up in absolutely no time. And like we said, you can start with one building. You don't have to start with the whole portfolio. And the setup is so easy. We can pretty much have you up and running in less than a week. It's really designed quite simple. We'll train all the users how to use it. So we'll take you through, it's all done online, and we'll take you through how to set up buildings, how to import employees, how to set up shifts, all those things you'd be able to set up, and we'll train you how to use it. And like Yannick said, you can have multiple administrators on the system. So if some of you are worried, well, I'm going to have to manage this whole thing, not at all. You can decide who are the people who need to manage either a specific building or a specific area, and they can do it themselves. Setup is really easy as well. And we've got two options there. So option one, I mentioned earlier, is we integrate with your single sign-on, and that's done by the very smart people at Mapiq. That's not done by us. So we integrate with your single sign-on. We've done this hundreds of times, and that takes a bit of time. And option two is self-setup. And like I said, we train you, you import lists, and we just take you through the journey and still have you up and running in less than a week. And the special we're running at the moment is we can do a free 1 month trial for you. So if you do sign up by January, we'll do the first free 1 month trial. And really why we do this trial is to give you a feel, will this work? Because sometimes people go, well, will this work in our business? Will this work for us? And the way we run the free trial is we speak to you guys and we get who's your people who will run the system. And we also involve one or two of the employees, who's the employee speaker, to also give us feedback. And we meet with them every week to go, cool, how's it going? Are people signing up? Are people booking shifts? What are they struggling with? And after the first month, it's completely up to you if you want to go ahead or if you say, no, it's not going to work for us. Although, Yannick, we have not had a company yet who said no.
I wanted to add, yeah, still on 100% conversion rate to actual customers. So that's going pretty well. And indeed, we just sort of have evaluation moments, most often weekly, to just see how things are going, make sure that all the right stakeholders are involved, and guide you through the process.
Cool. And just for those who are wondering, if you use the Office solution, could you upgrade to the full Mapiq solution with room bookings and desk flexibility? Absolutely. And we'll talk about it once you're up and running. And I've got one more question that came through. Yannick, one for you. Can you have more than one company use Office Shifts? So some of our clients might, be multiple companies in one building. Could Office Shifts handle that?
Yeah, of course, it's just a matter of attaching the right email addresses. So what we basically do is we attach an email address to an environment to make sure that you are separated from the other Mapiq customers. And then if we attach multiple email addresses to the same environment, people can just even use different single sign-ons if they want to. So in the end, if you might have multiple entities within your company, which of course happens quite often, yes, then we can even just make it possible to let them log in with a different email. Also with single sign-on, but also with self sign-up. So that's no problem.
Cool. Very cool, guys. That's us for our webinar today. Is there anyone with more questions? I don't see any new ones coming up. Anyone with more questions? If not, I'm just going to give you my contact details on screen right now. Like I said, we'll pop you an email afterwards with a copy of the slides, but please feel free to ask us anything. And if you want a demo maybe to the team at the office, or you want us to complete an RFQ or InfoSec requirements, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'll gladly assist you with that. And Yannick, thank you so much for, yeah, we're quite used to that. We're doing that well now. We've got a machine to do InfoSec requirements. Yannick, I don't see any more questions coming through. Thank you so much for your time today. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We know it's a busy time of the year for South Africa. Everyone's rushing to get things done before we go on holiday, pretty much. And that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Cheers. Have a good one.
Bye-bye, guys.